I'm using my Pentalic Aqua journal and sketching my backyard bird feeder. This is a really fun little sketch, and pretty much everyone has access to cute little birds in their backyard or their windowsill or the park down the street. There are birds around, sketch them. So this is a very, very limited palette, much more limited than I normally do, of Cobalt Blue, Quinacridone Rust, and Ultramarine Blue. That's it. No other colors. And you would be surprised at what kind of variation you can do with that. So I start, and remember, you always want to paint the colors of the feathers. When you're painting the feathers, look at the direction the feathers go in, just like any other object you're painting. And I'm just kind of going loosely into here and pulling my brush around the shapes of the feathers. So there are muscles under the feathers and their wings and all sorts of things. And make sure that your brush is painting those, not a big splotch of feathers. This isn't a coloring book. This is a shape of a living creature. So I went a little bit of scuffly color on the chest, and I'm still just using Quinacridone Rust for the kind of golden red color that they have here. A bit more shadow underneath. And this is the initial wash. I'm doing 2 washes. In a sketch, you could do 1 wash, you could do 2 washes. I honestly think everything looks better with 3 washes, but this one is 2 washes. So I only let it dry once. I'm using some Ultramarine Blue and the Quinacridone Rust for the sunflower seeds on my bird feeder. So I still have that rusty color that's being carried through the whole thing. But, you know, I've got, it's a little bit deeper dark for the Ultramarine Blue, and it's not kind of the chalky color that the feathers are. It's a black bird feeder and black oil sunflower seeds, so very dark. And I wanted the intense dark without using ink. You could use ink for parts of this, and I often do in sketches. If I'm in a hurry, you can do that extra wash without waiting for it if you use an ink pen. And there's my bird. So it doesn't take much to just suggest the idea of sunflower seeds or, birdseed in general. And that's all you're looking for in a sketch, is the suggestion of something. You can add more detail, you can add less detail, but it should give the idea of whatever it is you're painting. Now I'm going to have some fun. I want this to be really loose, so I'm just splashing paint all over there. Big areas, some water, having fun with it. You notice that I put some right across where I want the detail area of the bird's beak and the eye and all that. I wanted to do that to kind of blur the lines a little, not really have harsh edges. However, if you're only doing 1 wash and you don't want to wait for it to dry, the last thing you need is a big puddle of water right where you want detail. So keep that in mind. I've let this dry now, so I'm good. And I'm painting the beak. Same colors. This is the Ultramarine Blue and Quinacridone Rust mix. And I've sized down a little on my brush. Tiny bit more detail with the number 8. Now I'm painting around the whites of the eyes, but if you don't worry. You can use a razor blade. You can paint with white gouache. You can even pull a lot of it out if you're using a decent quality watercolor paper. So don't worry about that. Now what I'm wanting for the beak and the eye just makes it look real, doesn't it? It's great. What I'm wanting for the beak is I'm wanting it some harsh edges, so it looks like harsh darks, where it looks like it's rounded, and then a little bit where the light hits it. So I'm letting this dry for a second, and then I'm going to blur it a little at the top, and that makes it look rounded. and like the sun's hitting it. So just a little bit of very juicy paint here. Bit more water, a little bit more shaping. A little bit more water. And this is really the one area that you want to be exact in. The rest of it, you can be a little sloppy, you can let some edges go. Now I'm pulling that out, and now it looks like the sun's hit it. So I'll go back and add a tiny bit of darks in there, but that's all it needs. All right, so I have some darks at the underside of the wings there. And we'll paint with the shapes of the feathers, with the shape of whatever object it is you're painting. And just a bit of dry brush at the edge there. Some hit and miss strokes. And you notice that while I did let the background dry most of the way, especially where I wanted that detail, I didn't really worry about it drying completely bone dry. This is a very loose sketch. So the last area that we have some detail is the legs, where and then the little feet where they're hanging on to the bird feeder. This is a tufted titmouse, by the way, which is just the cutest bird I think in the yard, except that then every time I paint them, I love sitting on my deck and sketching the birds. Just adorable. This one's not scared at all. He'll follow me around the house, or one of them will follow me around the house and bang on the window when I'm out of food, just to, make sure I know that he needs that food. And we live in the woods, so there are all kinds of interesting birds, and it's a geologic changing point and climate changing point, so there's a lot of interesting things, like we've got both types of chickadees. And anyways, the tufted titmouse are just adorable. So I'm using a little bit more Cobalt Blue on the legs, a little less of the Ultramarine, because they have that kind of chalky, if you've ever looked at a bird's foot, they don't exfoliate. It has kind of a chalky, whitish tinge on the tops of the feet and around them. And then they have little lines, wrinkles all the way around where they're grabbing things, and it's interesting. So, a bit more Cobalt Blue for that. But just a tinge of the darker to give that definition. The back leg, and I want a little less detailed there than I have on the foreground leg, the front leg. Now this is all you need to do. You can stop the painting right here. You're done with the sketching. You've added just enough detail. You can see what it is, completely recognizable, especially if you know what tufted titmouse looks like. And I've captured the idea of the bird. However, you can go a little further. I want a little bit more detail. I still want to keep this a sketch. And the movement in the sketch is great with the splatter and stuff like that. That is a wonderful move when you don't want to do the background. You're wanting to do the subject, not the background. So unless there's some reason that you're doing the background in a sketch, paint the subject, do a little splatter paint, or a loose wash works, or anything that you want. and that's all you need to do. But it's going to look, it looks more vibrant, more interesting if there's a little bit of movement back there, a little bit of color. Okay, so I'm doing a little bit more detail on the beak now that it's dried a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit more detail in the feathers. And you notice that when I painted it, I'm not sure if you can see, but I painted the first wash where I was slightly in from the pencil line drawing that I did. So I did while it was a loose pencil line drawing, I went in a little bit from that for the wash, and that way I can get the wonderful texture edges of the feathers and not have the bird's head looks weirdly big in proportion to its feet. So I planned for adding the cool fun texture in there. I'm going back over the more grayed color with a little bit more of the cobalt and adding some color variation in every wash and leaving lots of holes makes a big difference. That really is what gives it life and interest. So you're getting pretty much every single step of this little sketch. And the only thing left out is about 5 minutes where I had a fan blowing on it if you were outside, and unless it was very hot here in the summer, it would dry about the same amount of time. In the summer, humidity takes care of that. So I'm using the Quinacridone Rust with a tiny bit of the Cobalt Blue. So it's just slight variations. You don't need huge ones. And next I want to round the belly a little bit, but I want the texture because it's fluffed up in the cold, right? It's, it's eating at the bird feeder. I don't put bird feeder out during the summer when they have lots of food. I put it out, after the babies grow up, bird feeder comes in. So it's all fluffed up against that cold and adding that little downy layer, and I just love painting that texture. It's really fun. You have to do it very loosely, a lot of dry brush, but you also want enough water in there so it blends. So it's a really good practice your dry brush and texturing and blending thing, because it's not definitely dry brush. It's got just enough so it flows together. A little bit of reddish fluff under there, and integrating that with the leg is an interesting little thing because it's got the fluff going over the leg. And I want to shape the head a little bit. And unfortunately, where I said you could stop earlier after the main details and it looked like I was painting, you can't stop now. You kind of, once you've started adding texture in one spot, you have to finish what you've done. So it's neat where it's so fluffed up that you can see the darker skin underneath the light colored feathers. So I'm painting that, and then I'm going to pull a little bit of that color away so you have that texture there from the feathers fluffing up against the skin. So photos are great for this, but and obviously I'm paying from a photo because I couldn't get a tufted titmouse to sit for me in my studio. I need to work on that training. But just joking. But you have to go out and really observe what you're painting, because you want to paint the same thing in a number of different positions. And it's fun. Painting backyard birds is just one of the most rewarding, simple pleasures of life you can get, because this needs 3 colors, a tiny little sketchbook, and really you can get away with just, in this case, the number 8 brush, because I wanted the little details. Depends on what you want on that. If you have a number 12, that'll work too, just wonderfully. So I'm hesitating because I want to get just those couple darks just where I want them. So this is where I become a little bit finicky. And after all, it is a sketch, and I could have chosen not to be all finicky and not all detaily in here. But, oh, painting that fluff is so worth it. So if y'all have any other favorite birds that you want to watch me paint, and this gives you some ideas, and see how building up the grays and stuff and the shadows in lots of different layers gives that fluffy, it's balled up against the cold feeling. It's really fun. So let me know if there's anything interesting that you'd like to see me paint. For instance, I have another tufted titmouse on the left-hand side of this page. I plan on sketching it. If you'd like to see it filmed, let me know, please. I always write the name of the bird that I painted. It's just fun to look back and see. So I hope this gives you some ideas and inspires you to go paint birds in your own backyard or park or wherever you see the cute little songbirds. Thank you very much for watching. For more information, visit my website, paintingwatercolor.com. I have a great reference photo for you there. And thank you so much for painting with me. Happy painting.